Hello, St. Mary of the Mills. This is Father Larry Young, your new pastor. I wanted to say hello and introduce myself. Some of you might remember me because I arrived here as a brand new priest, fresh out of the seminary, newly ordained. Oil hadn't even dried on my hands yet. And I arrived at my first priestly assignment, St. Mary of the Mills, like a deer in the headlights. Spent 3 wonderful years here. Monsignor Mike Wilson was the pastor. Father John Ming was here. Monsignor Kiesler was here, and he died right before I left. Coming back here feels like putting on a familiar, comfortable old pair of jeans. I mean, it feels like I just left 5 minutes ago, but we know 14 years has elapsed. That's a significant amount of time, so it's kind of funny. It feels like I don't know, like I went through a wormhole or something and I'm back. So I just was so excited when I heard I was coming here. Now, where was I over the last 14 years? I spent 2 years at St. Bartholomew's in Bethesda. Then I was in Charles County for a year at St. Mary's, Bryantown. Then I spent 5 wonderful years in St. Mary's County in Leonardtown at Our Lady's Church at Medley's Neck. Then I came up to Prince George's County to be pastor of Ascension Catholic Church for the last 6 years in Bowie. And now I've come to my 6th assignment as a priest, right back to where I started at St. Mary of the Mills. Folks, another little bit of interesting divine choreography about my assignment here is that when I was here before, I obtained a cemetery plot under that big, beautiful magnolia tree there. So I just think it's pretty special. I didn't know it at the time when I obtained that plot that I would come back here again to spend time serving you as your pastor. But now it makes all the more sense. So I'm really grateful to have this as my final resting place someday, but hopefully a long time off in the future. This will now be the 4th parish that I've been pastor of, but ultimately our Lord is the pastor or shepherd here of St. Mary of the Mills. He has always been here working through all the priests that have come here. And we all share this sacrament of holy orders that our Lord entrusted to us along with the deacons. So all of us are working together as a team to serve the people of God and further this mission we've received from the Lord, along with the administration and staff of the school and parish and St. Vincent Pallotti, all the many volunteers in the parish and in the school community, school parents, all the parishioners, all of us are working together as one team and part of the family of God. I believe in orthodoxy and fidelity to the magisterium, special devotion to the Eucharist and the Blessed Mother. My spirituality can be summarized as friendship with the Lord, an abandonment to divine providence, and a special love of the sacred scriptures. My favorite saint is Saint Jerome, of whom we have this marvelous stained glass window in our church. I'm devoted to him because of his love for the Bible. He's the only saint whom I actually have a first-class relic of. So you might be wondering what your new pastor likes to do for fun. Like, what are my hobbies and interests? What do I do on my day off? Well, I like to mess around with cars, so I'm kind of a car guy. And basically an American hot rodder. So I like to take beat up cars and fix them up. So about 9 years ago now, I bought this beat up Mazda Miata with 265,000 miles on it when the odometer broke. So I really don't know how many miles it had on it. It had 62 dings. The whole passenger door was mashed in. So I did 100% of the body and paint work on that car and brought it back to life. Then I built an engine for it. And you might see me driving around in it. So anyway, I like messing around with cars. I grew up working on cars. My dad was a farm boy from Missouri. We had 7 kids. We didn't have a ton of money. We always had beat up cars. My dad always insisted on fixing them, so I grew up holding the light for my dad and helping him fix the cars. My first job in high school was the Pep Boys parts counter. So anyway, that's what I do on my day off. I have a garage in Southern Maryland. And I go to and I hang out. It's a farm. It's on a farm that belongs to a former parishioner, and I shoot the groundhogs for them. It's kind of the arrangement. I think I'm up to 18 now. And I hunt deer on the property, and the deer and the groundhogs cause a lot of crop damage. So I help with that, and they let me hang out there. And I fix up their farmhouse, and I've worked in their vineyard too. It's been a neat and enriching experience. Not something most priests do, but I just can't play golf, okay? So I mess around with cars, both working on them and driving them. I've driven cars on tracks all up and down the East Coast, road courses primarily. I was a high performance driving instructor for a time. I've raced cars door to door and wheel to wheel. So I like to drive and work on cars. I call it my grease and gun getaway. I go down to this farm. I like to be dirty, hot, sweaty, grubby. That's what I do to blow off steam on my day off. Now, what are my other interests? Hunting, I already mentioned. I grew up fishing, so I still like to fish. And I love military history. Even though I shoot animals sometimes, I love them. And I love nature, so I'm kind of a naturalist. I've spent a lot of time in nature. I once walked up the entire Appalachian Trail in 1990 when I was 21 years old. It took me 6 months and a week to walk from Georgia to Maine, 2,000 plus miles on the Appalachian Trail. So I've had some long soaks in nature. I did an outward bound course in Minnesota, a survival school, and so I love nature. I like music, classic rock from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I really don't know anything after that. I also like classical music. Most familiar with Beethoven's symphony. I particularly like the Pastorale, the 6th Symphony. So I love birds. I'd say of all the aspects of nature I know the most about is birds, believe it or not. I'm kind of an amateur birder, and specialize in eastern songbirds. So what are some of the other formative experiences that have formed and shaped me? I would say the first that comes to mind is attending Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio for 3 years. I got a philosophy degree and a theology minor there. And I can't say enough good about Franciscan University in Steubenville. Incredible place. When I left there, I worked as a carpenter for 4.5 years total. I had a truck tools. I was going to go into business for myself. I still drive a truck. I still have all my tools. So I'm kind of like a carpenter philosopher guy. Let's see, I've lived overseas. I spent a year in Rome and in the seminary, and I did get to spend 1 semester living in Austria during college. So, and I just went to the Holy Land for an entire month by myself a couple years ago, and I made 20 videos on my YouTube channel, which I should tell you about. I have a YouTube channel for the last couple of years. I've been working on growing, and I hope to continue here at St. Mary of the Mills. So it's pretty easy to find. Just go to Father Larry Young, search my name, but use the abbreviation FR. Larry Young, and you'll find it. So what do I see as my mission, or what are my goals here as pastor of St. Mary of the Mills? It's kind of early to be talking like this. I mean, I can only speak in general terms, folks. I'm living out of boxes right now. It's only been a few days, but just in general terms. Primarily, my number one thing on my mind is to be a disciple of Christ. To be a faithful, loyal servant and disciple of Jesus Christ myself personally. And to get to heaven. That's my primary mission. My hunch is if I can attain that goal, I'll wind up being a fairly decent pastor for y'all. So please pray for me in that regard. Next, first thing that comes to mind is to really build our community. Our fellowship is part of the family of God, strengthening that, bringing us together to mutually support one another. Then I would say the schools are such a big aspect of this parish, to support the schools in their mission and forming young disciples for Christ is a very important part of my job, my vocation, my time here at St. Mary of the Mills. And lastly, preaching and teaching the Catholic faith gives me so much joy as a priest. I want to strengthen you all in your love and knowledge of our Catholic faith. So I know you knew me 20, 30 pounds ago when I was here last year in 2006, and there's a lot more gray hair on my head, but I'm glad to be back, folks. And I was Father Young when I was here. Somewhere along the line I changed over to Father Larry, so that might be an adjustment for folks to get used to. But glad to be your pastor. I can't wait to meet you all and re-meet some of you. And until then, God bless you.